Hello Carl class, hello Ross class, and hello Potters class. It's story time, and this one is called One Snowy Night by Nick Butterworth. Welcome to Percy's Park. Percy, the park keeper, works hard looking after the park and his animal friends who live there. But Percy still likes to find the time for some fun and games. And of course, in Percy's Park, there's always time for a story. It's cold in the park in winter, but Percy the park keeper doesn't mind. He puts on his warm coat and his big scarf and wears 2 pairs of woolly socks inside his Wellington boots. Percy likes to be out in the fresh air. Look, he sees breath. In the middle of the park, there's a little hut. And this is where Percy lives. When it gets too cold to be outside, Percy goes into his hut where it's cosy and warm. The animals who live in the park all know Percy's hut, and every day he shares his lunch with them. Isn't that nice? Can you see him sharing with the bird? One winter's night, it was so cold, it began to snow. Great big snowflakes fell past the window of Percy's hut. "Ooh," said Percy, "I think I'll need an extra blanket tonight." He made himself some hot cocoa and got ready for bed. Suddenly, Percy heard a tap, tap, tapping sound. There was somebody at the door. Now, who can that be? Thought Percy, as he went to the door and looked out. But there on the step was a squirrel. It looked very cold and very miserable. "I can't get to sleep, Percy," said the squirrel. "My bed is full of snow." "Oh dear," said Percy. "Never mind, I've got plenty of room for 2. So the squirrel snuggled down next to Percy and soon began to feel warm. It was the door again. Now, who could that be? Thought Percy. But standing outside were 2 shivering rabbits. "It's freezing," said one rabbit. We're frozen," said the other. "Oh, you poor thing," said Percy. "Come in and warm up." The rabbit squeezed into the bed next to Percy and the squirrel. There wasn't much room. Could you face the other way?" Percy asked the squirrel. "Your tail is tickling my nose." "Oh dear," said Percy. "Now there's someone else at the door." It was a fox, and he looked very cold and hungry. "Can I come in too?" he asked. Percy scratched his head and thought for a minute. "Well, if you promise to behave," he said. I promise," said the fox, and he squeezed into bed next to all the other animals. Boop! Oops, the squirrel fell out. "Who did that?" asked the squirrel crossly. Goodness gracious, said Percy, it's the door again. But this time, Percy had quite a surprise. There on the step was a badger, 2 ducks, a hedgehog, and a whole family of mice. And they all wanted a bed for the night too. Poor old Percy and poor old Percy's bed. The animals pushed and shoved and rolled and all around the bed, but there just was not enough room for them all. Soon the bed covers ended up in a big tight ball, but then the covers rolled right off the bed and everybody fell onto the floor. Oh dear, said Percy, this won't do at all. My bed is just too small. Suddenly, one of the mice pricked up his ears. What's that noise? He screamed. And everyone listened really hard. But now they could all hear it. There was a scratching, scraping sound, and it seemed to be coming from underneath them. There's something moving under the floor, whispered Percy. The animals looked frightened, and the mice all started to squeak at once. Oh dear, what could it be? It might be a monster with fierce claws and sharp teeth. But the noise got louder and louder and louder. Then one of the floorboards began to move. Look out! It's coming up through the floor! Help! Help! Cried the animals, and they all ran and hid. But Percy wasn't frightened. He started to chuckle. A small dark head was sticking up through the floorboards. This isn't a monster, said Percy, it's a mole. Oh, I'm sorry to burst in like this, said the mole. I knocked on the door, but nobody heard me. Percy helped the mole up through the hole in the floor, sat him on his hot water bottle to get warm, and put the floorboard back. It's all right, everyone, he called. You can come out now. But nobody moved. Nobody stirred. Nobody wanted to come out. The squirrel was tucked away in the pocket of Percy's dressing gown. The hedgehog was in his coat. The fox, the rabbits, and the badger and the ducks were all safely hidden away, and the mice had even squeezed themselves into Percy's slippers. Everyone had found a cosy bed. Well, I never, said Percy. Percy yawned and snuggled down in his own bed once again. That's better. I've got plenty of room, he said, and even a little to spare for them all. The end. Snip, snap, snap. The story is out. Bye.